Kelly was so angry that her face turned red. She slammed her fist on the table and stood up. "You guys are going too far. Do you really want to cause trouble in broad daylight?"
You're a little spitfire, aren't you? Taming that temper could be fun. No wonder Hubert wants you."
Fatty and the others became even more nasty in their comments. Right at this moment, Hubert joined them. Kelly recognized Hubert at a glance. "Hubert, it's you?" Kelly was a little surprised. She actually didn't like Hubert. When Kelly and Lisa had celebrated Lisa's birthday with Lisa's boyfriend Hank, Hubert had gone to eat with them and then went to Pacific Coast Karaoke to sing. Kelly knew at the time that Hubert was interested in her, but she had absolutely no feelings for him. Kelly looked up at Hubert standing by her table with all his buddies leering behind him.
"Kelly, long time no see. Did you miss me?"
Hubert said.
"I called you so many times. Why didn't you answer?"
After their evening at Pacific Coast Karaoke, Hubert had called Kelly many times, but Kelly had never picked up. Kelly looked at Hubert, who had a lewd look on his face, and said snappily, "Why would I want to pick up? You're Hank's friend, not mine." Hearing this, Hubert frowned. Patrick said,
"Little woman, how can you say that? It is your lucky day that Hubert here has taken a fancy to you. If you know what's good for you, you'll go with him. I promise you that he'll make you feel good."
The people behind Patrick burst into laughter once again. Hearing the filthy words directed toward his sister-in-law, Mark frowned. Kelly was so angry that her face turned ashen. She raised her hand and pointed at Hubert and scolded, "Hubert, take your men and get out of here. If you dare to make fun of me again, don't blame me if I'm rude."
"Oh, you're not polite? So what? You'll be even more fun to play with."
Patrick and the others became even more unscrupulous in their taunts. Mark finished the last sip of coffee and gently put down the cup. He then raised his head and looked at these people as if he was looking at a group of ants. "I'll give you 1 minute to disappear," Mark said softly. He didn't want to waste time with these ants.
"Oh, you're so tough with your mouth."
Patrick and the others immediately turned their eyes to Mark and rubbed their hands together in anticipation.
"Dude, if you know what's good for you, get the hell out of here. Leave the woman. Otherwise, don't blame us for being rude. Breaking one of your legs will be a light punishment if you make us angry. We can break the other one too if you like, so you have a matching pair,"
Patrick said. As soon as Patrick spoke, Mark suddenly picked up the coffee pot from the table and quickly lifted the lid. Then he waved his hand, and the coffee pot arced in the air and flew toward Patrick. The coffee in the pot was hot. Patrick was caught off guard as it splashed over his hands and clothes. He didn't expect Mark to suddenly attack. He covered his hand that was burned. Hubert was infuriated by Mark's sudden attack. "Mark, how dare you hurt my bro? I'll fight you to death!" Hubert shouted, raised his fist, and rushed toward Mark. Unfortunately, before Hubert could reach Mark, Mark hooked a wooden stool next to him with his leg and then threw it at Hubert. The wooden stool flew out. It hit Hubert's chest with a bang. He staggered back a few steps and fell to the ground. Mark had been sitting there the whole time. After knocking Hubert down, he picked up a water bottle next to him and took a sip, as if nothing had happened. Seeing that there was a fight, the manager of the restaurant walked over in fear and trepidation. "Guests, if you have a problem, please talk it through. Don't fight in here."
"Damn you,"
Patrick said. He kicked the manager to the side. He then called out to his gang of scoundrels and shouted, "Go!" Immediately, Hubert's friends advanced on Mark and Kelly. Kelly's face revealed a look of fear. How could she not be afraid when she saw this scene unfold? She took out her phone and said to Mark, "There are too many of them. Let's call the police." "No need." Mark gently pushed Kelly behind him. He gave her a nonchalant look and said, "Kelly, wait here. It'll only be a minute or two." As soon as Mark had spoken, a young man with yellow hair raised a wooden stool and threw it at Mark. But before the wooden stool could connect, Mark raised his leg and kicked it fiercely at the young man's stomach. The young man screamed and was sent flying several feet. Immediately after that, Mark did a leg sweep and knocked down 2 or 3 other young men who had pounced on him. Then, without any hesitation, he grabbed another young man who was trying to attack him from behind. Without effort, he lifted the young man over his head and threw him away. The young man screamed in pain. He was thrown to the ground by Mark and couldn't get up for a long time. A few minutes later, the other young men all fell to the ground, crying for mercy. Patrick gritted his teeth and grabbed a bottle of wine from the table. With a loud cry, he lunged at Mark as if his life depended on it. Mark didn't even try to dodge. Instead, Kelly, who was standing to one side, shouted at the top of her lungs, "Mark, be careful!" As soon as she said this, she closed her eyes in fear. The next second, there was a loud bang. The bottle smashed hard on his head and broke into several pieces. The beer inside sprayed everywhere. Kelly covered her mouth in shock, but she soon realized that the bottle didn't hit Mark's head, but Patrick's. Kelly was stunned. What was going on? It was obviously Patrick who used the bottle to hit Mark, but why did the bottle hit Patrick's head instead? Even Patrick didn't understand what was happening. When he used the bottle to hit Mark, he felt a pain in his wrist. When he regained his senses, the bottle had hit his head with a bang. Patrick was struck dumb. His body staggered and fell to the ground. At this moment, except for Hubert, everyone else was knocked to the ground by Mark. Fear appeared on Hubert's face. He looked at Mark and suddenly recalled that night at Pacific Coast Karaoke, when Mark had beaten Julius and his subordinates with his own strength. Even Julius was no match for Mark, let alone these small fries. Hubert suddenly regretted provoking Mark, but it was too late. Mark stalked toward him step by step. As for Hubert, how could he still have the courage to step forward? He couldn't. All he could do was back up, step by step, as Mark advanced. Mark's eyes targeted Hubert like arrows heading for a bullseye. "Hubert, right?" Mark said as he approached Hubert. "Last time at Pacific Coast Karaoke, you touched my sister-in-law. You even tried to get her drunk with Hank and then take her for yourself. I was merciful then and spared you. I didn't expect you to not only not repent, but also try the same thing a second time. If you go after my sister-in-law, don't blame me for what happens." Kelly was stunned when she heard this. She took a step forward and asked Hubert, "What did you do to me last time at Pacific Coast Karaoke? Did you really make me drunk and touch me?" Last time at Pacific Coast Karaoke, they had gotten Kelly drunk. She was in a daze and didn't know what happened after that. Now that she heard what Mark said, she finally reacted. It turned out that the last time at Pacific Coast Karaoke, Hank and Hubert worked together to set up a trap for her. They wanted to get her drunk and then take her as their own. Luckily, Mark appeared and saved her. If he hadn't, Kelly might have ended up in a mess. It was a really dangerous situation. Despicable, shameless filth. Kelly, who understood everything now, was furious. She stepped forward and gave Hubert a hard slap in the face. But Hubert's face showed a trace of ruthlessness. He reached out his hand and grabbed Kelly's neck. He said fiercely, Stinky woman, what are you pretending to be innocent for? Aren't all the women from LA University being toyed with? I want to have you, and I will. There's nothing you can do about it. Kelly was choked so hard that she couldn't catch her breath. Mark narrowed his eyes. In the next second, a stone appeared in his hand. He put the stone between his index and middle fingers, and then gently pushed it out. The stone shot in a straight line toward Hubert. With a thud, the stone hit Hubert's right shoulder. Hubert grunted and couldn't stop himself from taking 2 steps back, loosening his grip on Kelly. In the next second, Mark was in front of him. He reached out and grabbed Hubert by the neck and threw him to the ground. With a thump, Hubert landed heavily. Before he could get up, Mark stepped on his chest. Hubert couldn't even breathe. He felt like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. If Mark used a little bit of strength, he would be able to kill him. What was even more terrifying was the killing intent that flashed across Mark's face. Could it be that this Mark guy actually wanted to kill him? The shadow of death flashed across Hubert's mind. At this moment, Patrick, who had been knocked out, woke up. He staggered to his feet. When Hubert saw Patrick, he struggled and with great difficulty squeezed a few words from his throat. "Patrick, quickly, call Ken." Patrick shook his head vigorously. A trace of clarity appeared in his mind. He looked at Hubert and realized that his bro was about to be trampled to death. Patrick realized how powerful Mark was and didn't dare to step forward. Hubert was still repeating the same words with great difficulty. "Patrick, quick, call Ken." At this time, perhaps only Ken could save Hubert. Hubert had been a gangster since he was young. Now, he ran 2 billiard halls and a gaming arcade. He had become a small-time boss. Those who did business secretly, even small businesses like billiards and gaming halls, had to be protected by someone. Otherwise, sooner or later, their businesses would be ruined. Ken was in charge of this area, and he had dozens of men under him. Anyone who did business around here had to pay protection fees to Ken. Hubert also paid Ken for his business. So Ken said that if Hubert had had any problems, he would help him. So in his desperation, Hubert thought of Ken. Ken was the only one who could save him, Patrick suddenly realized. He hurriedly took out his phone and dialed Ken's number. Mark didn't stop him. He just smiled gently and said, "You need help? All right, then I'll wait and see what kind of help you guys can muster." Kelly saw that Patrick had already called Ken. She immediately became worried. She went forward and said to Mark, "Mark, I heard that Ken is the enforcer of this area. He has dozens of men under him. Let's hurry up and leave." Mark shook his head and said, "No worries. I would like to meet this Ken and see who he is. Could it be that he's stronger than Julius?" Mark thought that if he wasn't afraid of the mighty Julius, he had no reason to be afraid of the puny Ken. "All right, since you all want to play today, I'll play with you until the end." A person like Hubert needed more than one beating to change his mind and intentions. The last time at Pacific Coast Karaoke obviously hadn't been enough. If Mark let him go, he would try even harder to harass Kelly next time. So Mark wanted to really teach him a lesson today. Thinking of this, Mark slowly put down the foot that was stepping on Hubert's heart. He shrugged his shoulders and said, "If you want to call for help, I'll wait. Otherwise, prepare to receive my wrath." After saying that, Mark sat down on a stool next to him and crossed his legs, waiting leisurely for this so-called Ken to show his face. Hubert knew Ken would be here soon. He was a loyal man, and Hubert paid him a lot of protection money every year. The two of them had a good relationship after working together for a long time. When Ken received the call from Patrick, saying that Hubert was in trouble, Ken immediately called dozens of his subordinates and rushed to the restaurant. When they arrived at the restaurant, the manager and the other customers saw Ken's posture and were so scared that their legs turned to jelly. They stayed far away from him. Patrick looked at Ken as if he'd seen his savior.
Ken, you're finally here. If you hadn't come soon, Hubert and I would have been beaten to death.
Ken waved his hand. The dozens of men behind him immediately stopped in their tracks. He said loudly, "Who dares to touch one of my brothers?"
"It's that guy."
Patrick raised his hand and pointed at Mark. Ken raised his head and looked at Mark. This glance was not a big deal, but it startled him. "Boss? Boss Mark?" Ken thought he'd seen wrongly. He rubbed his eyes hard and took 2 steps forward. Only then did he confirm that the person in front of him was his boss, Mark. When Mark saw Ken, he was happy. "Oh, I thought it must be someone else, but it turns out that the Ken they were talking about is you. Ken, you're a good kid. You've already become like a brother to me," Mark teased. It turned out that the Ken that Patrick and Hubert were counting on was the same Ken that Jack had hired. Ken was the leader of the group of hoodlums who were bribed by Jack to cripple Mark. Later, he was bribed by Mark and convinced by Mark's charm to be Mark's lackey. Just yesterday, Mark had called Ken and asked him to investigate Jack for him. In fact, Ken was not a hoodlum, but was secretly enforcing in this area. Although he couldn't compare to Julius, he still had a reputation. A small boss like Hubert, who owned a game hall and a couple of billiard halls, had to rely on Ken to protect him. Mark stood up and walked to Ken. "Ken, you're doing well. You're actually someone else's savior." Then Mark looked at the dozens of underlings behind Ken. "What's up? You brought so many people here because you want to make a move on me?" Ken raised his hand and slapped himself in the face. He said with a smile, "Boss, don't tease me. How could I dare to attack you? You're my boss. Patrick called me and told me that someone was beating on Hubert. I never thought that it was you, boss. You should know that if I knew it was you, I wouldn't dare to bring so many people here." Patrick and Hubert were dumbfounded when they heard the conversation between Ken and Mark. Patrick walked up to Ken and said,
"Ken, this guy hit me and Hubert.
Before Patrick could finish his words, Ken raised his hand and slapped Patrick's ear. "You stupid fool. It's not enough for you to offend just anyone. You have to go and offend my boss. And not only did you offend my boss, you also called me and asked me to bring dozens of people to deal with him." Ken cursed as he stepped forward and kicked Patrick's butt a few times, making Patrick scream.
"Ouch, stop hitting me, Ken. I really didn't know that this Mark guy was your boss. When did that happen?"
Ken stopped kicking Patrick and said, "All of you listen up. Mark is my boss. You dare to offend my boss again in the future? I'll not let you off lightly." Hubert was a fool, but he could learn. He already knew that this Mark was really capable, because last time at Pacific Coast Karaoke, even Julius had stepped aside for him. Marcy of the Green family was also very polite to him, and now, even Hubert's savior, Ken, called him boss. But wasn't this Mark a useless son-in-law? How could he have such capabilities? Hubert climbed up from the ground in a sorry state and walked to Ken's side. Just as he was about to say something, Ken kicked him to the ground. He pointed at Hubert and scolded. "Hubert, you provoked my boss for no good reason. If I don't teach you a lesson today, you'll just keep on behaving like a fool." After that, Ken went forward and punched and kicked Hubert. Hubert begged for mercy. "Stop hitting me, please. I was wrong. I was blind. I shouldn't have provoked Mark." Only then did Ken stop. He turned around and looked at Mark with a smile. "Boss, my 2 minions offended you because they didn't know what was going on. If you want, I'll kill them right now." Upon hearing this, Patrick and Hubert felt their hearts tighten. Patrick was so scared that he fell to his knees in front of Ken. He said with a sad face,
Ken, we're bros. You can't be so cruel. Spare us. We won't dare to do it again.
It's not my decision to make. You have to ask my boss. It's for him to decide, Ken said. Hubert and Patrick crawled to Mark's feet like two dogs and begged for mercy. Mark looked at them with disdain, then said, Hubert, will you dare to have any thoughts about my sister-in-law in the future?
No, I won't. I won't do it again. No matter what. Boss, please be kind and spare me.
Hubert begged for mercy. At this moment, he wished he could find a hole and crawl into it. The last time he was at Pacific Coast Karaoke, he'd clearly witnessed Mark's power. Why had he been so stupid as to provoke him again today? Hubert swore that he would never provoke Mark again. Mark said, All right, admitting your mistakes is a start. Ken, let him go this time, but I don't want to see a next time.
Don't worry, boss. I guarantee that they won't dare to do it again,
Ken said. Mark nodded. All right, stop kneeling, dogs. Get lost. You've ruined a perfectly good meal. Ken raised his leg and kicked Hubert and Patrick hard. He scolded,
Didn't you hear my boss ask you to get lost? Do it, now.
Patrick, Hubert, and the people who were with them ran away in a sorry state. Ken went forward and apologized again. Then he said to Mark with a serious face,
Boss, didn't you ask me to investigate Jack's matter?
Mark said, How's the investigation going? Ken lowered his voice and said,
We have a situation. Jack has gone missing.
Mark was stunned when he heard this. Missing? What do you mean?
Boss, after you beat him up last time, he disappeared as if he'd dropped off the face of the earth. And according to my investigations, Jack is not only the eldest son of the Maori Company, he also has a hidden identity.
A hidden identity? Mark was even more shocked.
As for what this identity is, I haven't found out yet. But Jack's movements have always been very mysterious. Every month he disappears for a few days. We all expected that after you beat him up, he would definitely come and take revenge on you, but he did not. Not only did he do nothing to get revenge, but also his family was not worried at all about his disappearance. They didn't even call the police.
Mark said, Tell me, why did Jack disappear? And what is his hidden identity?
Boss, I really can't find out about this in a short period of time. But don't worry, I'll continue to investigate.
Mark frowned. He'd always felt puzzled. Where did Jack get that kind of poison? It was colorless and odorless. Even modern technology couldn't detect it. As a result, giving it to Mark's father-in-law caused Timothy to lapse into a coma. Now, it seemed like Jack's identity wasn't that simple either. Ken, you have to continue investigating. You have to find out Jack's true identity. Ken nodded seriously.
Yes, boss. Don't worry. I'll find out this information as soon as I can.
Mark sent Ken and the others away and ate a simple meal with Kelly. Then his phone rang. He picked it up and saw that it was President Winchester calling. After answering the phone, President Winchester's anxious voice immediately came from the other end.
Master Mark, where are you?
The LA University president asked.
Something happened at our school again. Another woman's belly started to swell, and in a short period of time it became enormous. Now she seems to have gone crazy with fear. She's behind the main building, screaming and yelling.
Hearing President Winchester's words, Mark's mouth revealed a trace of a smile. Just as he'd predicted, 3 hours had passed, and something had happened.
Master Mark, please come and help us.
President Winchester's tone was pleading. Mark said lightly, Isn't there an officer there? Do you really need me to come? It's probably not necessary.
Master Mark, the police can't solve this problem. This place is in chaos now. Only you can help us.
Mark said. Unfortunately, the officer in charge doesn't think so, President Winchester. I think I don't want to get involved in this matter, because I don't want to be chased away by an overbearing cop when I get there. Mark deliberately said that he didn't want to go. It was not because he was trying to look special. It was because he remembered the attitude of Captain Jones, and that made him more than a little unhappy. He intended to wait until Jones called him personally. Only after the captain begged Mark for help would he be willing to go back. If Mark went back after President Winchester gave him a call, he would just look like a fool. President Winchester, I'm really sorry. If those officers really can't handle it, then ask them to call me. After saying that, Mark was about to hang up the phone. President Winchester was so anxious that he was about to cry.
Master Mark, please don't hang up the phone. I'm begging you. You'd better come. I've said this before. The police can't solve this problem. Only you can solve it. I know that those officers don't have a good attitude towards you, but at this moment, a person's life is at stake. If you're late, that woman will die, like the others whom we've already lost. You don't want the deaths of more innocent women on your head, do you?
After hearing these words, Mark let out a long breath. Winchester was right. He couldn't just ignore the plight of that woman just because he was angry with some idiot police officer. Thinking about it, Mark said, "All right then, I'll come." After hanging up the phone, Mark strode out of the restaurant and headed toward the university. Kelly hurriedly followed him. "Mark, you're right. You said that someone would be in trouble within 3 hours. Now it seems to be true." Kelly looked at the tall figure of Mark walking in front of her. Her heart was filled with doubt. She had just seen Mark knock over more than a dozen of Hubert's men with her own eyes. That was simply too cool. Could a person really undergo such a huge change in such a short period of time? Yes, a useless loser can one day really become a powerful person that people look up to, Kelly thought. The two of them soon arrived at the university and headed for the back garden. When they arrived, they saw a group of people. A woman in pajamas had her hair hanging loosely on her shoulders. She was holding her protruding belly and shouting, "Don't come near me, any of you! Stay away! My belly has become bigger just like theirs. And next, I'll also give birth to a fish like them, and then I'll become a dried corpse." The woman screamed as she collapsed and used all her strength to punch her own stomach. "I don't want to give birth to a fish. I don't want to become a dried corpse. I'd rather die now." The woman ran toward Green Lake like a mad thing. She wanted to jump into the lake and commit suicide. But a couple of police officers caught her and held her back. But the woman was strong in her panic. She pushed the officers who stopped her with all her strength. They staggered back, and she picked up a stone from the ground and pounded it against her stomach. "Quickly, stop her!" At this moment, Captain Jones, the officer in charge, was so anxious that he broke out in a cold sweat. The case of the two women who died earlier had not been solved yet. Now, another woman's stomach had become bigger. That Mark guy was right. Mark looked at the flustered faces of the officers, and a cold smile appeared on his face. What amused Mark was that Captain Jones had actually called 911, like that would do any good. Very soon, the ambulance arrived. The paramedics wanted to take the woman to the hospital. Mark quickly went forward to stop them and said loudly, "This woman is not sick at all. She's possessed. It will not help you if you take her to the hospital. It will only waste time and cause her to die even more quickly." "Nonsense. It is not up to you to tell me what kind of decision I should make," Captain Jones scolded Mark angrily. Then Captain Jones rolled his eyes and looked at Mark. "Didn't you leave? Why did you come back? I told you that you aren't needed here." Mark said. If it wasn't for the sake of saving that woman, do you think I would be willing to meddle in this matter? All right, I don't want to argue with you. The fact is that woman is carrying a fish in her stomach. What's the use of you taking her to the hospital? How can you be so sure that there's a fish in her belly? What if it's something else? I can only find out after she gets an ultrasound at the hospital, Captain Jones said. Mark was speechless. This woman's stomach had already swollen up so big that it wouldn't be long before she gave birth to the fish. Then she would become a dried corpse. She simply didn't have time to go to the hospital and do a scan. Furthermore, even if she did, it would be pointless. She was still carrying a fish in her stomach. At this moment, Officer Worth walked over and said anxiously to Jones, "Captain, that woman is very emotional. Her stomach is still swelling at a visible rate. The situation is very dangerous. There's no time to send her to the hospital. What should we do? If we delay any longer, I'm afraid that this woman will be like the two women earlier. She'll give birth to the fish inside her and turn into a dried corpse." Then the female officer saw Mark, and her face immediately lit up with joy. "Oh, isn't this Master Mark from earlier tonight? Captain Jones, since this person calls himself a master, I think he must have some skill. Time is very essential right now, so why not let him see if he can do anything? Because looking at the woman's appearance, she is indeed possessed." Officer Worth's words made Mark feel a little happier. Although Captain Jones had rejected his offers to help, Officer Worth believed him. Finally, there was a cop who believed him. Captain Jones glared fiercely at Officer Worth and said, "I said it before. This matter doesn't need him to intervene. What kind of useless master is he? Officer Worth, am I the captain or you? What makes you think you know better than me?" Officer Worth shut up and didn't dare to say anything. At this time, the woman let out a series of screams again, and her hands pushed into her stomach with all her strength. "My stomach hurts. I'm about to give birth. Help me. I don't want to give birth to a fish. I don't want to become a dried corpse." Officer Worth's face suddenly changed. "Captain, what should we do? This woman is giving birth." Mark said, "Captain Jones, if we delay any longer, this woman really will give birth to a fish and become a dried corpse. That is a human life you're playing with. Do you want her death on your conscience because you are afraid to try every possibility of saving her? I'm afraid you won't be able to bear it." "Who do you think you are? How dare you speak to me like that?" Captain Jones was furious. At this moment, President Winchester ran over.
"Captain Jones, just listen to me this once. This young man, Mark, really is a master. I have seen his abilities with my own eyes. Please, let him see what he can do. If this continues, another life will be lost."
Officer Worth also said, "Captain, the situation is urgent. I think you should let this young man give it a try. Maybe it will work." Captain Jones coldly stared at Mark. The situation of the woman was getting worse and worse. It was indeed very urgent. Captain Jones's brows were tightly knitted, as if he were in a fierce struggle with himself. After a moment, his brows relaxed, but he said coldly, "Even if this woman is really possessed, she should still find a true master to deal with it. Not just any random bum who calls himself a master should interfere in this matter." Kelly couldn't continue listening. She took a step forward and said loudly, "Who are you calling a bum? My brother-in-law is a real master. When my stomach also became as big as this woman's, it was because there was a fish inside. My brother-in-law got the fish out. He saved me. Why don't you believe me? Why are you looking at me like that?" Captain Jones said, "I just don't believe it. In my opinion, he's just a nobody who calls himself a master." Kelly was so angry that she wanted to say something rude, but Mark gave her a look. Officer Worth lowered her voice and said to Captain Jones, "Captain, what do you mean? You just said you wanted to find a real master? At this critical moment, where can we find one?" Captain Jones said, "Officer Worth, do you remember someone called Milo Davidson?" Milo Davidson? Are you talking about that famous master of metaphysics in Nevada City, Milo Davidson? Officer Worth asked. "Yes, that's him. Just a few years ago, they had to dig a tunnel in a mountain near Nevada City. It was said that there was a snake living in that mountain. No matter what type of drill they used, they couldn't make headway with the tunnel, and several workers died one after another. Later on, the mayor of Nevada City asked Milo Davidson to help. This famous metaphysics master entered the mountain by some special method, and very soon a white fog came out of the mountain and disappeared. It was said that Master Milo used his own secret technique to send the snake away. Then those workers tried again, and poof, the drills cut through like they were drilling hot wax instead of stone. Everything went smoothly after that." Officer Worth nodded. "Yes, I heard about that. It seems to be because of that situation that Milo Davidson was dubbed Master. He is very famous. Captain, you don't mean you want to invite Master Milo Davidson here, do you? He's in Nevada. There's not enough time for him to make the trip." Captain Jones smiled. "You don't know. Master Milo Davidson came to California yesterday, and he's in L.A. I have his number. I only need to give him a call." "Oh, I see. That's great, Captain. Call Master Milo right now. It'll be too late in a few minutes." Captain Jones glanced at Mark, then took out his phone and started dialing. After the call, Captain Jones deliberately waved his phone in front of Mark and said, "The real master will be here in 10 minutes. There's nothing for you to do. You should leave as soon as possible. There's no point in staying to be shown up for the idiot you are." Kelly said angrily, "What do you mean? My brother-in-law is a real master, but you don't want him to get involved. You even called another so-called master. I think the master you're expecting is a nobody." President Winchester was also stunned. There was obviously a perfectly good master in front of Captain Jones, but he insisted on calling in someone else. It seemed like Jones was determined to embarrass Mark. Kelly said to Mark, "Brother-in-law, they are going too far. It is obvious that they want to embarrass you. Let's go. We don't care about this anymore. They can do whatever they want." Mark was also a little angry, but he was a person who didn't show his emotions. He smiled gently and said, "It is because he wants to make things difficult for me that I cannot leave. Kelly, we'll stay here. I want to watch carefully. In the end, we'll see who embarrasses who." Not long after that, Milo Davidson, the so-called Master Milo, arrived. What was surprising was this Master Milo was very young, only in his 30s. He wore a black suit and had a crew cut, and his face was craggy. When he walked, he puffed out his chest and raised his head, looking very imposing. Mark could tell at a glance that this person was just putting on an act, and didn't have any real ability. When Captain Jones saw Master Milo, he hastily went over to greet him. "Master Milo, it's already so late, and I'm sorry to call you at this hour, but I had no choice but to do so because lives are at stake," Captain Jones said. His attitude toward Master Milo was in stark contrast to his attitude toward Mark. In fact, Captain Jones had never believed in any supernatural events, nor did he believe that the woman was possessed by evil. But because the situation in front of him was so bizarre, and this woman's stomach was swelling so inexplicably, he felt he had no choice. This case really couldn't be solved by common sense. Furthermore, he deliberately wanted to embarrass Mark. That was at least half the reason why he'd called on Milo Davidson. Milo waved his hand and said,
Captain Jones, you don't have to be polite with me. I've worked with your Chief Watson before. A few years ago, he asked me to solve a case involving an unimaginable supernatural incident. So for his sake, I couldn't stand idly by in this matter."
After that, Master Milo added pretentiously,
"Human life is a matter of great importance. It has never been a small thing."
Captain Jones nodded his head. He purposely complimented Master Milo in front of Mark.
"Quite right. I knew you were a believer in the sanctity of human life."
Hearing Captain Jones's compliments, Master Milo was very satisfied. He smiled and nodded his head. Then he said,
"All right, let's not waste time on compliments. Let's get down to business. Captain Jones, you just said on the phone that there were 3 women in this school whose stomachs inexplicably became bigger, and they even gave birth to a fish. Then in the end they died and dried up?"
Captain Jones hurriedly pointed at the woman who was still crazy and said,
"Yes, Master Milo, look, this is the 3rd woman. As a police officer, although I don't believe in evil, the situation of this woman is indeed unbelievable. That's why I asked you to take a look."
Master Milo raised his head and looked at the woman. His expression immediately became serious. Then he took out a compass from his pocket and slowly walked toward her. He didn't approach the woman. Instead, he walked around her at a distance of about 8 feet and then came back.
"She is indeed possessed. Someone used magic to control her. The source of the evil is in her stomach. It's probably something very powerful, and it's about to come out. In order to resolve this matter, we have to find a way to kill it."
Master Milo put away his compass.
"Captain Jones, don't worry. Evil magic is not something that works well in public. To use righteous exorcists is a piece of cake to get rid of it. Don't worry. I'll get rid of the evil thing in that woman's stomach right now,"
Master Milo said. President Winchester and Kelly, who were standing to one side and listening, had puzzled expressions on their faces. This Master Milo had actually described the matter so casually. The woman had been struck by the fish venom, and the fish venom king was in her stomach. The fish venom king was about to take shape, and even Mark had put in a lot of effort earlier when he killed the fish venom king in Tamsin's stomach. Judging from Master Milo's tone, it seemed like he thought he could kill the fish venom king in no time. Mark frowned as well. This Master Milo was not only shallow, but a liar too. The fish venom king in the woman's stomach was about to take shape. Mark was afraid that Master Milo's abilities were no match for the fish venom king, but he spoke of it so casually. If that wasn't acting cool, what else was? Pretending to be pretentious at this moment was no longer a laughing matter. Pretending to be pretentious at this moment would cost this woman her life. Master Milo took some artifacts from a canvas bag slung over his shoulder. It seemed like he was indeed planning to kill the fish venom king in the woman's stomach. Mark couldn't help but remind him, "The fish venom king in the woman's stomach is about to take shape. With your few artifacts, I'm afraid you won't be able to subdue it, and you will even lose your life." Mark was trying to warn him out of good intentions, but he didn't expect that after hearing this, Master Milo would suddenly turn his head and look at him.
"Young man, don't speak your nonsense here. Are you questioning my strength?"
Mark said, "I'm just reminding you with a good intention, because if you can't subdue that fish venom king, not only will you die, that woman will die too. Human life has never been a small matter."
"What arrogant words!"
Master Milo flew into a rage.
"Ignorant boy! You actually think that I can't subdue that fish venom king? It's just a puny little fish venom king. It's nothing to me. If you really are being kind enough to remind me, then that's fine. But if you're looking down on me, I won't forgive you."
Mark thought to himself, "This man is really too inconsiderate. Just now I kindly reminded him of something, and he flew into a rage just like that, and even said that I was an ignorant boy. This makes him feel like he is better than me." "You can believe what you want to believe," Mark said as he shrugged indifferently. "I just don't want to see that innocent woman die. As for you, if you want to die, then whatever."
"You?"
Milo was furious again.
"It seems that you don't know my true identity. Do you know where I'm from? I started learning mystic arts when I was 3 years old. My master is the famous Master Zachariah. He has been defeating evil and predicting the fate of the country for many years. He has vanquished demons and devils many times to save people. He has learned a lot and is already known as half fairy. I don't dare to compare myself to Master Zachariah, but thanks to his guidance, I've dealt with many supernatural incidents in Nevada over the years, and I've gained a lot of fame. I may be young, but everyone addresses me respectfully as Master Milo."
Milo paused for breath before continuing.
"I didn't expect that you, a loudmouth boy, would dare to disrespect me and even look down on me."
"Wait a minute," Mark interrupted him and asked. "Who did you just say your master was? Master Zachariah? Which Master Zachariah? Not Zachariah Zeus." Milo fumed.
"Shut up! You're just a nobody. How dare you call my master by his full name? My master's name is Master Zachariah. Everyone has to call him Master Zachariah when they see him."
Mark was instantly amused. "So your master really is Zachariah Zeus? Well, let me tell you something. A few days ago, Zachariah Zeus overestimated his own abilities and insisted on solving the problem of the monster in Green Lake. In the end, he almost drowned. If I hadn't saved him, he'd be dead."
"Shut up! How dare you speak nonsense and insult my master?"
Master Milo was so angry that his face changed color. He wished he could destroy Mark. Mark spread his hands and said, "I'm not talking nonsense. That master of yours, Zachariah Zeus, almost drowned in Green Lake a few days ago. If you don't believe me, you can ask President Winchester." Mark turned his eyes to President Winchester. President Winchester was also a little stunned. The Master Milo that Captain Jones had asked to help them was actually Master Zachariah's disciple. What the hell? This had to be a joke. Even his master, Zachariah Zeus, was no match for Mark. He was nothing against Mark, which meant that Zachariah Zeus's disciple, Milo Davidson, was most likely less than nothing. Last time, President Winchester had invited Zachariah Zeus to solve the problem of the monster in Green Lake. In the end, Zachariah Zeus almost drowned. If it wasn't for Mark saving him, Winchester knew that Zachariah's old bones would have already sunk to the bottom of the lake. Zachariah Zeus didn't dare to act rashly in front of Mark, but his disciple, Milo Davidson, was really arrogant and domineering. Mark couldn't help but laugh once more. "Wow, I really didn't expect this. I thought that Captain Jones had invited some big shot, but it turns out that he is just a disciple of Zachariah Zeus. Zachariah pretended to be a great master in the beginning, but in the end, he was nothing in front of me. Do you think you can do better than him?" Mark looked at Milo Davidson. "I advise you to pack your things and run away. You don't stand a chance here. Even if your master Zachariah came, he wouldn't be able to subdue the fish venom king in this woman's stomach. At most, he would just be cannon fodder and be sacrificed for nothing. Like you will be if you insist on seeing this through."
"You?"
Hearing this, Milo Davidson was so angry that his entire body was trembling. In his mind, his master was a godlike being, and he was Zachariah Zeus's eldest disciple. the disciple that his master was most proud of. After learning that, and in order not to tread on his master's toes, Milo had left California and relocated to Nevada. After living in Nevada for so many years, he knew that he had made a name for himself. Everyone called him Master Milo. His master, Zachariah Zeus, was even more famous in Nevada than in California. But this guy called Mark in front of him actually dared to speak rudely and insult his master. This was ridiculous. Captain Jones was furious at the way Mark was speaking to Milo Davidson. "Master Milo, don't just get angry with this boy. Show him your real ability and let him see what a true master is," Captain Jones said. Milo snorted coldly and said to Mark, "Kid, open your eyes and watch carefully. I'll show you what strength is." After saying that, Milo suddenly raised the artifact in his hand and leaped toward the woman. He stood in front of her, then pointed the artifact at the woman's forehead and shouted, "Hey, monster! Don't cause trouble. Watch me kill you." After saying that, he suddenly raised his hand and a charm appeared on the woman's forehead. Then he shook his head and chanted an incantation. He raised the artifact and thrust it straight at the woman's stomach. Everyone's eyes widened. Seeing Master Milo's fierce movements, they all thought that Master Milo would definitely kill the fish venom in the woman's stomach. But they were proved wrong. When Milo used the artifact to stab at the woman's stomach, the woman let out a muffled groan. A pained expression appeared on her face, and in the next second, the fish in her stomach suddenly moved up her body. In the blink of an eye, it had reached her throat. The woman was forced to open her mouth wide. A black fish came out of her throat. The fish had a pair of black eyes filled with coldness, and its mouth was filled with sharp teeth. Then, the woman suddenly raised her arm and grabbed Milo by the neck. Milo was still holding the artifact and pressing it against the woman's stomach. He didn't expect the woman to strangle him so much that he couldn't catch his breath. The fish had stuck half of its body out of the woman's throat and suddenly opened its sharp mouth and bit Milo in the neck. Milo's pupils dilated, and the incantation he was chanting came to an abrupt stop. The hand holding the artifact loosened, and it fell to the ground. The fish took one bite from his neck, and then it subsided back into the woman's throat and returned to her stomach. Then, the woman released Milo. Although the fish only took one bite, a bloody hole had already appeared in Milo's neck, and blood was flowing out. Milo raised a hand and tried to block the bleeding hole, but it was to no avail. Due to excessive blood loss, Milo's face paled. His body swayed, and he fell to the ground with a thud. The surrounding people were shocked, including Captain Jones. Officer Worth said, "Captain, this is the so-called master you found? He's no match for that fish at all. Is he about to die?" The corner of Captain Jones's mouth twitched violently. He never thought that this so-called Milo Davidson, this Master Milo, would be so vulnerable. It was only one small bite by the fish in the woman's stomach, but now he was on his last breath. If Captain Jones didn't believe that there was a fish in the woman's stomach before, he believed it now. How could he not, after seeing the fish stick its head out of the woman's throat and bite Milo in the neck? He had to believe it. Milo's body kept twitching on the ground. His face was twisted with pain. His muscles bunched together, and his eyes filled with fear. He hadn't thought that he would be so vulnerable, or be taken down so quickly, and then die from one bite by that fish. At the last moment of his life, he suddenly thought of his master. He was the disciple that his master, Zachariah Zeus was most proud of. After learning all Master Zachariah had to teach, he swore that he would create new techniques in this field and become a respected master just like his master, Zachariah Zeus. He was so confident in himself because he was still young. He believed that in a few years, he would become the most famous master of metaphysics in all of the U.S. But this dream would never come true. How sad was this? Who would have thought that he would suddenly die because of a fish on such an ordinary day? At the last moment of his life, his hand suddenly trembled. He used the last of his strength to take out his phone from his pocket. Then he dialed Master Zachariah's number with trembling fingers. The phone was soon connected. Milo Davidson said in a weak voice, "Master, I'm sorry. I've let you down. I can't live up to your expectations anymore. It's me. I'm too arrogant and conceited. That's why I ended up like this. Master, disciple, take care, Master." When Zachariah Zeus heard his disciple's words, he immediately realized that something was wrong. He shouted loudly, "Milo, what happened? Where are you now?" More and more blood was flowing out of Milo's neck, but he still used his last bit of strength to spit out, "LA University." Then his eyes glassed over. He loosened his hand, and his phone fell to the ground. He was dead, but his eyes were still wide open. He looked like he hadn't died in peace. Almost at the same time, a woman screamed as well. Her body fell to the ground, and then she turned into a dried corpse at a speed visible to the naked eye. The fish in her stomach was about to come out. At that moment, Mark immediately dashed over and raised his palm to slap the woman's stomach. The fish in the woman's stomach stilled, and the atmosphere froze. Everyone was stunned. He was dead. Milo Davidson, the so-called Master Milo, was dead. The woman was also dead. Two living people had instantly turned into corpses. After a while, President Winchester said sadly, "They're dead. 2 human lives, gone. I can't believe it." Mark stood up from beside the woman's corpse. He turned his head and stared at Captain Jones with a pair of cold eyes. Captain Jones didn't expect things to turn out like this. When he saw Mark's cold eyes, his heart couldn't help trembling. The next second, Mark walked toward him with his fists clenched. When he was in front of Captain Jones, Mark didn't hesitate. He raised his fist without any hesitation and smashed it into Captain Jones's face. The famous police captain, who had solved countless major cases, suddenly had one side of his face swollen. He staggered and almost fell to the ground. The next second, Mark looked at him coldly and said, "Dead. 2 lives destroyed. If you hadn't tried to embarrass me, they would both be alive. Asking Milo Davidson to solve this matter wasted precious time." The reason Mark was angry was that he'd known from the beginning that he could save the woman, but Captain Jones had looked down on him and had been determined to embarrass him. He had preferred to ask Milo Davidson from Nevada to settle this matter. Jones didn't want to believe in Mark. In the end, Captain Jones wasted precious time and caused the woman's tragic death. He also caused Milo Davidson to lose his life. "As I said, you can't bear the consequences of 2 lives," Mark said as he approached Captain Jones again. Captain Jones started to panic. He knew that it was because he didn't believe in Mark that things had turned out this way. Captain Jones received another punch in the face. After this punch, Mark stopped. He looked at Captain Jones with contempt and coldly said, "You are not qualified to be an officer." At this moment, hurried footsteps were heard. Everyone looked up and saw an old man in his 60s or 70s walking toward them in a hurry. The old man was wearing a gray robe. His beard was white, and he had a sad expression on his face. Because he was running too fast, he was staggering.
Master Zachariah.
President Winchester was stunned when he saw the old man. This old man was none other than Zachariah Zeus. When Zachariah received the call from his dying disciple, Milo, he immediately rushed to LA University. When he arrived at the backyard, he saw Milo's corpse lying on the ground in a strange position. He was dead. The disciple he was most proud of was dead. Although he'd expected this outcome, Zachariah's head still buzzed when he saw his disciple's body. He staggered and threw himself at it.
Milo, haven't you been in Nevada all this time? Why did you suddenly come to California and the LA University?
Zachariah saw the female who had also turned into a dried corpse and her protruding belly. He immediately understood what was going on.
Milo, the thing in that woman's belly is the Fish Venom King. Even your master can't deal with it. Why did you have to act so arrogantly and try to deal with the Fish Venom King? You've sacrificed your life for nothing.
Tears were flowing down Zachariah's face as he hugged his disciple's cooling body. He had never thought that Milo, who had been in the Nevada area for years, would suddenly come to California and get involved in the Fish Venom King matter. Zachariah had witnessed the power of the Fish Venom King with his own eyes. Perhaps only Master Mark could deal with it. As for him and his disciple, they were simply no match for the Fish Venom King. He never thought that his disciple would be so foolish and arrogant. But in the end, it cost him his life. Then Zachariah saw Mark standing to one side. He understood something even more. He put down his disciple's body and staggered to Mark's side. Then he knelt down in front of Mark.
Master Mark, this disciple of mine was good at everything. He was just too arrogant and conceited. Master Mark, he wanted to show off. He thought he could solve the Fish Venom King problem by himself, but in the end he lost his life. Given his character, he must have offended you. I apologize on his behalf. My disciple was arrogant and conceited. His skills were ultimately inferior, and he lost his life as a result. I can't blame anyone else, but today, I have to give up my dignity and beg you to take revenge for Milo. He was the most hard-working and talented among all my disciples. In just 5 short years, he's already learned all of my abilities, and in order not to steal my job, he went to the unfamiliar Nevada area by himself. I always thought of him as my own son, and now he's dead. As his master, I don't have the ability to avenge him, so I must rely on you.
After saying that, Zachariah stood before Mark and looked hopeful. Mark said, Master Zachariah, you don't have to do this. Zachariah Zeus shook his head repeatedly, as if he was ashamed of himself.
Don't call me master anymore. This old man in front of you is nothing. Although I'm older than you, my ability is nothing compared to yours. Master, now not only do I have to ask the great master to avenge my disciple, but I also want to ask you to accept me as your disciple. I've studied geomancy mystic arts for many years, but you have more skill in your little finger than I have in my whole body.
Hearing this, everyone was stunned. The famous Master Zachariah was actually begging Mark to teach him. Compared to him, Mark was just a kid. The elder was acknowledging that the young man was his master. Captain Jones stood to one side, feeling shocked. He had thought that Milo Davidson was powerful enough, but even Milo's master was nothing in front of Mark. Zachariah Zeus was the famous Master Zachariah. Even the richest and most powerful people respected him because he was really capable. But such a capable man was apparently willing to acknowledge the strength of Mark Johnson. He even wanted to acknowledge him as his master. What was the background of this Mark? Could it be that Captain Jones really had underestimated him? Mark looked at Zachariah. Don't worry, your disciple will have his revenge. I still have to deal with the dark hand behind the fish venom. 3 women have already died. That's 3 innocent lives lost. Whoever is responsible for their deaths will pay with blood, Mark said. Then he turned around and resolutely walked toward the body of the woman who had turned into a dried corpse. He walked to the side of the corpse and lowered his head to look at the woman's protruding belly. He knew that the fish venom king was still in the woman's stomach. Previously, it wanted to escape, but part of its energy was dispersed by Mark's slap, and it was temporarily trapped in the woman's stomach. Mark didn't immediately make a move. Instead, he turned his head and looked coldly at Captain Jones, who was standing beside him. Captain Jones, open your eyes and watch carefully. Today I'll show you what true strength is, and what a true master is. After saying these words, Mark didn't hesitate. He raised his left finger and quickly drew an ancient Vajra talisman symbol on his right palm. The image Mark drew was a club with spikes coming out of the rounded head. The Vajra talisman combined with the indestructible properties of a diamond with the irresistible force of a lightning strike. It symbolized one of the most powerful weapons in the universe. Then, Mark pressed his right palm on the stomach of the dried corpse and loudly recited the Strangle Hell curse. Upon hearing this spell, all the demons and devils in the surrounding area would have to stop, including the fish venom king in the woman's stomach at Mark's feet. Mark chanted the spell a second and then a third time. Each time Mark repeated the spell, its power increased. The fish in the woman's stomach grew restless, and it rampaged all over the place as if it was suffering from an intense disruption. This fish had already absorbed the essence of the 3 women's bodies. It had basically taken shape and was extremely powerful. So after fighting wildly for a few minutes, the fish venom king broke through the dried corpse's belly and flew out of the woman's body. At that moment, Mark stretched out his hand and grabbed the fish behind the gills, lifting it up. Everyone was shocked when they saw the fish flapping in Mark's hand. The fish was black and red, and its body was emitting a black light. Its scales were faintly visible, glittering, sometimes black, sometimes red. The fish's eyes were like human eyes, shining with a cold light. Zachariah couldn't help but shout, "This fish venom king has already taken shape. Master Mark, kill it quickly. If it breaks free, the consequences will be unimaginable." Others might not know about this, but Zachariah, who was a student in profound studies, knew it very well. The fish venom king cultivated by the fire voodoo cult was extremely powerful, especially now that it had taken shape. Mark held the fish tightly and said with a sneer, "Don't be anxious. Before killing this fish, I intend to pull out the black hand behind it." A few days ago, Mark had helped his sister-in-law get rid of the fish in her stomach. He also helped Tamsin Lamb get rid of the fish in her stomach. In the end, he killed the fish venom king that was about to take shape. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to find out who was behind all of this, which was why it had returned, and he was facing this problem today. Today, no matter what, he had to find out who was behind all of this, and, if there was more than one, kill all of them together. Only then would he be able to eliminate all future problems. Mark raised his other hand and adjusted his breathing. After that, he focused all of his energy on the palm of his hand. As he focused, a flame suddenly jumped out from it. Everyone was startled. Mark's palm could actually ignite a flame. That was incredible. Mark silently chanted the triple flame fire controlling technique. With his current level of strength, producing a flame in his palm was no longer a big deal. But he didn't throw it out. Instead, he slowly moved the flame under the tail of the fish. This was the triple true fire. When the tail of the fish was roasted by the triple true fire, it immediately began to struggle intensely. It looked like it was in extreme pain. No one understood what Mark was doing, except Zachariah, who understood instantly. He first praised Mark's action of igniting the flame in his palm. Then he said,
"This fish venom king has already taken shape. It means that there is a black hand controlling it from behind. It has already merged its soul and divine sense with this fish. If this fish is in pain, the black hand behind it will also be suffering greatly. When the black hand behind the scenes can't bear the pain anymore, it will come out and beg Master to spare its life."
As the triple true fire burned more and more violently, the fish's pain increased. A moment later, the sky above the garden of LA University was filled with dark clouds. Everyone was shocked. Only Mark and Zachariah knew that this dark fog wasn't a normal cloud. It was a dense mass of evil passive energy. It seemed like the dark hand behind the scenes was hiding nearby. Under the grilling of the triple true fire, it had forced this being to release more than half of the evil energy in its body. Next, the dark hand behind the scenes would probably come out and beg for mercy. As expected, after about 30 seconds, with a series of miserable cries, a black shadow tumbled out of the flower bushes in the back garden, and with a pop, landed in front of Mark. Everyone was shocked. Under closer inspection, they found that it was a person dressed in black. "This is the mastermind?" Captain Jones was shocked. Officer Worth couldn't help but sigh in admiration. He really forced the mastermind out. This young man really does seem to have some skills. The man in black was trembling from head to toe. He was in extreme pain. After landing in front of Mark, he quickly got up. He kneeled in front of Mark and slammed his head hard on the ground. He kept begging for mercy. "Master, please spare my life. Master, please don't roast me with fire anymore. It hurts. It hurts too much." Mark glanced at the man, then slowly put away the burning flame. The fish had been roasted to death. The man kneeling on the ground was also on his last breath. Mark smiled. Everything was under his control. Since the Fish Venom King had already taken shape, it meant that the dark hand behind the scenes had merged his divine sense and soul with the fish. This fish was him, and he was the fish. So Mark controlling this fish was the same as Mark controlling the black hand behind the scenes. He only needed to use a few tricks to force that evil person to appear. "Are you really from the Fire Voodoo cult?" Mark asked. The man didn't even dare to raise his head in front of Mark. Breathing heavily, he said, "Yes, I'm from the Fire Voodoo cult. Master, please spare me. I've already witnessed your skills and power. I won't dare to act rashly anymore." Mark said, "Spare you? That'll depend on whether you're honest or not. Answer my question first. Why is your Fire Voodoo cult stirring up trouble here at LA University?" Mark recalled that Professor Perry had also been a member of the Fire Voodoo cult. Because his identity had been exposed, Professor Perry had destroyed himself, with the black evil flame. The man kneeling in front of Mark was also a member of the Fire Voodoo cult. He'd repeatedly tried to harm those women, trying to absorb all the essence in their bodies to extract the Fish Venom King. The man panted and said, "I'm only using the method of the Fire Voodoo cult to refine the Fish Venom King. It is extremely powerful. It is a sharp blade that can kill. In order to extract this sharp blade, I used those young women from the university. The reason why I chose those women as my targets is that LA University is the most famous university in California. Not only are the women here rich in knowledge, but their bodies are also young and strong. If the Fish Venom King is refined in bodies full of wisdom and youthful vigor, the end result is even more powerful." The man panted hard a couple of times before continuing. "Originally, the good spiritual energy in this university was so abundant that the people of the Fire Voodoo cult, who are full of evil energy, didn't dare to get close to this place. But a year ago, a monster entered Green Lake and absorbed a lot of the spiritual energy here, so it became much weaker. That's why we dared to come here." Mark said, "In order to refine the Fish Venom King, you killed all those young women. That is really detestable." Hearing this, the man's entire body trembled. He groveled before Mark. "Great Master, please, spare my life. I won't dare harm anyone anymore." Mark stared at the person groveling in front of him. "Look up." The man slowly raised his head. Mark was stunned when he saw the man's face. Jack? This man couldn't be Jack Mowry, could he? No, Jack was just a spoiled young good-for-nothing. How could he be a disciple of the Fire Voodoo cult? Or could it be that this person just looked exactly like Jack? Mark. When Jack saw Mark in front of him, he was also stunned, and his eyes revealed a surprised expression. "Mark," he repeated in amazement. "What are you doing here?" Mark frowned. This man really was Jack. Previously, when Mark asked Ken to investigate Jack, Ken said that Jack had disappeared without a trace. At the time, Mark thought it was strange. After he'd damaged Jack's arms and legs, he'd expected Jack to come after him looking for revenge. But nothing had ever happened, and Ken hadn't been able to find any trace of him. Why had Jack mysteriously disappeared? And why had he suddenly appeared in front of Mark, apparently as a member of the Fire Voodoo cult? "Mark, how can you be the one who broke my fish venom?" Jack suddenly became agitated. Then he tried to stand up, but just fell down again with a thud and a shout of pain. Mark saw that one of Jack's legs didn't work at all, and one of his arms, hidden under his long sleeves, seemed to be disabled. So it was true. This was Jack Mowry, the same Jack that had tried to steal Nicole and that Mark had beaten up. Kelly, who was standing to one side, was shocked as well. "My God, it actually is Jack. How could he be a member of the Fire Voodoo cult?" From Kelly's point of view, Jack had always been the eldest son of the CEO of the Mowry Corporation. He was an out-and-out spoiled young man, and he'd always been in pursuit of Kelly's elder sister, Nicole. Kelly hadn't liked him much, but she had never thought that Jack might have a hidden identity. Any hidden identity, let alone one as a member of the Fire Voodoo cult. Jack's eyes were black, and his face was pale. Evil energy lingered around his body. He was completely different than the spoiled young man from before. Mark frowned and took a step forward. He stared into Jack's eyes and asked, "What's going on? Speak." Jack was scared when he saw Mark's cold expression, but after a while, he raised his head and laughed.
You're just a wimp. You never thought that I, Jack, had another identity. You see, I secretly joined the Fire Voodoo cult many years ago. After joining, I learned all kinds of evil magic and used them to get whatever I want, such as money.
A trace of complacency appeared on Jack's face.
Many years ago, the Maoris were just a small family beginning to gain a foothold in LA. My father's business got started because I joined the Fire Voodoo cult. I used the evil arts that I learned to defeat my father's business competitors. I also got control of some individuals who were talented in business and made them do things for my father. That's why the Maori family has achieved what we have. Our Maori Corporation has become one of the biggest corporations in LA. Of course, because the Fire Voodoo cult is a cult. Its methods are not something that can be brought to the table in business meetings. All these years, I've used the evil arts that I've learned to easily and secretly obtain what I want. But there's one thing that's an exception, and that is women.
At this point, Jack's face revealed a trace of resentment.
I have many women by my side, and there are also many women who voluntarily throw themselves into my arms. But there is only one woman in my heart, and that is Nicole. She is the only woman that I've ever wanted. 5 years ago, I was rich and should have been able to get her easily. But at that time, the elder of the Fire Voodoo cult sent me abroad on a secret mission. I was away for 5 years. When I came back, I found that the woman I loved was already married. And to add insult to my wounds, she'd married a good-for-nothing.
Jack paused to catch his breath, then continued.
I was furious, but later on, I realized that Nicole didn't love her new husband at all. Their marriage was in name only. So of course, I set out to get her back.
Jack looked at Mark fiercely and said,
I thought you were just a useless person, and I didn't need to use any evil magic. I figured that I could easily trample you down and take Nicole from you. But I never thought that she wouldn't want to divorce you. Her heart is too soft, helpless. The only thing I could do was to secretly poison her father. With him in a coma, there would be high hospital expenses sucking them dry. Then I tampered with Nicole's company, taking it to the verge of bankruptcy so she wouldn't have the money to pay the hospitals. I expected that in such a desperate situation, she would see no alternative but to come and beg me for help. And then it would be a simple matter to manipulate her and have her for my own.
Jack shook his head sadly.
But in the end, I miscalculated. It seemed like I was about to succeed, but her father suddenly woke up and returned to normal. Her company's crisis also passed. All of this was because of you, Mark. Not only did you save Nicole's father, but you also helped her company survive. You suddenly became so good at fighting that my 2 bodyguards and I were no match for you. I was not willing to give up, however, so I secretly looked for Ken and the other ruffians. I wanted to silently push you out of the picture, but I didn't expect you to cripple me instead.
Jack's expression became furious. He looked at Mark with hatred.
I just don't get it. How did you suddenly become so strong that you could hurt me? Bah, I'll never forgive you. I decided to use the evil arts I learned in the Fire Voodoo cult to deal with you. But first I needed to extract the most powerful killing weapon I could find. The Fish Venom King. To do that, I chose to plant the fish venom in the bodies of those young women at LA University. After absorbing their essence, I would become the real Fish Venom King. As long as I was this Fish Venom King, then I'd be able to deal with you, Mark. It was a great plan. I'd use the Fish Venom King to make you wish you were dead every day. Eventually, I would torture you to death. Only then would I be able to relieve the hatred in my heart. Jack sighed heavily. But I never thought I would fail. Someone broke my fish venoms one after the other and even killed my Fish Venom King. And today, not only did that person break my fish venom, he used the Fish Venom King to force me to show myself and torture me until I am on my last breath. I never expected you would be this someone. Jack stared at Mark with a wild and resentful gaze before shouting hysterically, "You broke my fish venom and killed my Fish Venom King, and you forced me to show myself. How is this possible? You were just a useless person. Even if you can fight, it's impossible for you to break my fish venom." Jack couldn't believe it. He had spent so much effort on refining the Fish Venom King to torture Mark. He hadn't expected that it would be broken by Mark in the blink of an eye. Jack had poisoned Nicole's father and put him in a coma, but Mark saved him. Jack had tampered with Nicole's company, causing it to be on the verge of bankruptcy, but Mark saved it. Jack had used his 2 bodyguards to step on Mark, but Mark beat them. Jack had asked Ken and his hooligans to teach Mark a lesson, but Mark defeated them and crippled Jack. It seemed like every time Jack and the useless Mark exchanged blows, Jack lost miserably. Whenever he thought of this, Jack's heart filled with resentment. Jack couldn't understand how Mark had suddenly become so powerful. "It's impossible. You can't break the fish venom. You're useless." Mark took a step forward and kicked him. Then he said, "Jack, I originally thought that you were just a spoiled young idiot who only did what you did because you wanted to snatch Nicole from me. I never expected you to be a member of the Fire Voodoo cult. You're a villain who specializes in using evil arts to harm others. You didn't hesitate to harm those women just to get revenge on me. You're detestable." Mark was furious when he thought of the women Jack killed. They were all so young. Their beautiful lives had just begun, and they died in such a terrible manner. The worst thing was that Jack had attacked Mark's sister-in-law, Kelly. He planted the fish venom in Kelly's stomach. If Mark hadn't saved her, she would also have been dead by now. "You've harmed so many people. I can't forgive you," Mark said. Upon hearing this, Jack was terrified. Although he didn't want to admit that it was Mark who broke the fish venom, his cheap life was now completely in Mark's hands. "What do you plan to do? Don't tell me you intend to kill me." Jack's voice trembled because he was really afraid that Mark would kill him in a fit of anger. "You killed those women, so your life is forfeit. I think that since you joined the Fire Voodoo cult, you must have used evil magic to harm many people. Do you really think that you can do whatever you want just because you've learned a few evil skills? Do you know the saying, 'What goes around comes around'? Or how about, 'It's time to pay the piper'? Or why don't I make it really simple for you? Payback's a bitch.
Fear appeared in Jack's eyes.
Do you really plan to kill me? You can't prove I killed those women because I used an evil magic that left no traces at all. There's no evidence. You can't prove a thing. Yet you intend to kill me in front of everyone?
I'm not that stupid, Mark sneered. Besides, killing you will dirty my hands. Isn't there a cop around here somewhere? Mark looked at Captain Jones and Officer Worth, then raised his voice and said, "How about it, Captain Jones? Did you hear what Jack said just now? He's admitted that he killed these women, and that he's harmed many people in the past. Jones, although I really want to kill him and get justice for those women who died tragically, you're still the officer in charge here, so I'll leave Jack to you." Captain Jones never thought that Mark would have extraordinary means to lure out the mastermind behind the scenes so quickly, and even make the mastermind admit to the crimes he'd committed. What surprised him even more was that the mastermind, Jack, was actually a member of the Fire Voodoo cult and had killed many people with evil magic over the years. Captain Jones gave the order, "Cuff him." Immediately, 2 officers walked up to Jack with shiny handcuffs. Without saying a word, they cuffed Jack's wrists together. Jack's calm demeanor completely broke. Once he was taken away by the officers, what awaited him for the crimes he'd committed over so many years was either endless prison time or an unfortunate accident.
Don't give me to the police. I'd rather you killed me. Please, Mark, just kill me, Jack begged.
"I said I don't want to dirty my hands with you," Mark countered. "I'll just let our boys in blue help you on your way." But just as the officers were about to take Jack away, Mark suddenly said, "Wait." He walked to Jack and stared into his eyes. He then said, "Jack, I have one last question to ask you. Where did you get that poison you gave to my father-in-law? It was colorless and odorless. Even modern technology couldn't detect it." The Fire Voodoo cult doesn't only focus on evil arts. Our great elder is also an expert in poison research, and he can make all kinds of poisons. You didn't expect that, did you? As for the poison that I gave your father-in-law, it was easy for me to get and use. "What about Red Green?" Mark asked. "He was poisoned with exactly the same poison as the one you gave my father-in-law. Did that poison also come from your Fire Voodoo cult?" "Of course. There's nowhere other than our Fire Voodoo cult that you can find such a miraculous poison," Jack said. Mark was surprised. "Don't tell me you poisoned Red as well." Jack shook his head. "Of course it wasn't me. I have no issue with him. I only poisoned Timothy to force Nicole into my power. Someone bought the poison from me and must have used it on Old Man Green." Mark was shocked. The same poison had been used on his father-in-law and Red Green. It had been created by the great elder of the Fire Voodoo cult, which was where Jack had gotten it. He'd used it to poison Timothy, but someone else had poisoned Red with the same poison, purchased from Jack. Mark promised Marcy that he would help her investigate this matter, so he asked, "Who bought this poison from you?" The Greens were the most famous family in California. Who would have the guts to buy this poison and poison the head of the Green family? Jack stared into Mark's eyes and smiled. "You want to know who bought the poison from me and poisoned Old Man Green? Why should I tell you?" Mark jumped forward and grabbed Jack by the neck. "Tell me, who was the one who gave the poison to Red Green?" A cunning smile emerged on Mark's face when Jack balked at telling him who had purchased the poison from him. "Jack, if you tell me who bought the poison from you and used it on Red Green, I might be able to give you a quick and relatively painless death, Mark said. I mean, what's the point of protecting this person? Do you think that will save you? It won't. And even when you're dead, the Greens will take revenge on your family if they haven't got anyone else to go after. So, if you love your family, I suggest you spill the beans, because I doubt the person you're protecting gives a damn about you or the people you care about. Jack was stunned, but he immediately said, "Don't try to trick me. I promised Bob that I wouldn't betray him." Bob? Mark's face suddenly turned stern. The one who poisoned Red Green was Bob, his son? Jack's eyes widened. He suddenly realized that he'd said something wrong. Damn it, he was so confused. He became furious. "Mark, stop messing with me." Mark chuckled. "I'm not messing with you. Your brain just slipped out of your mouth. No one to blame but yourself." Mark then waved at the two officers. "All right, I've finished asking questions. You can take him away now." Jack was dragged to the police car by the two officers. He struggled to turn around and shouted at the top of his voice. "Mark, you useless piece of trash! You want me to go to jail for the rest of my life. You want to end my life, but you won't get your wish." A black fog suddenly appeared above Jack's head, rolling like steam from a boiling cauldron. The two officers who were dragging him were shocked. In the next second, not only Jack's head, but also his shoulders, neck, and every part of his body were emitting this black fog. Mark watched with wide eyes. Not good. It was the black evil fire. He suddenly thought of Professor Perry. When his identity was exposed, in order not to reveal the secrets of the fire voodoo cult, he'd shot the black evil fire out of his body and burned himself to ashes. Now, the same thing was happening again. In fact, in just a few seconds, Jack's entire body was surrounded by the black flame. The two officers let go of Jack and jumped back. They were at a loss. They had no clue what had happened. Terrible shrieks came from within the inferno. Jack screamed at the top of his voice, "Mark, I've already sent the news of my death to the Great Elder through the Fire Adept's voice transmission. I am the disciple that the Great Elder is most proud of. He will definitely avenge me. You have offended the Fire Voodoo cult. They will kill you. I'll see you in hell." A moment later, Jack's miserable eyes came to an abrupt end. The black flame disappeared. The only thing left in the air was the unpleasant smell of charred flesh. Jack had turned to ash. Everyone was dumbfounded. What's going on?" Captain Jones asked in surprise. Mark said, "Jack was such a coward. I hoped he'd show some courage before he died, maybe do the right thing, but he just used the black evil flame to kill himself. Captain Jones, I helped you catch the mastermind, and I wanted to help you achieve something else. But now, it seems like it was all in vain." Zachariah walked up to Mark and said seriously, "Master Mark, before Jack died, he told the Fire Voodoo cult what happened. The Fire Voodoo cult are extremely protective of each other and always want revenge. I'm afraid that they'll come and seek revenge on you." Those who offended the Fire Voodoo cult never had a good ending. Because they were good at using evil techniques, those who offended them would die quietly, or in ways that no one could identify. Although Mark was powerful, the evil skills of the Fire Voodoo cult were hard to guard against. That was why Master Zachariah was worried for Mark. Mark shrugged and said indifferently, "Whatever. The Fire Voodoo cult is what it is. If they don't show up, it's all good. If they do, I'll make sure that they never come back. It'll be a good way to get rid of them." It seemed like Master Mark didn't care about the fire voodoo cult, Zachariah thought. Looking at Master Mark's confident look, it seemed like he, Zachariah, was overthinking things.
Although the fire voodoo cult is powerful, Master Mark is even more powerful. There's no need for me to worry,
Zachariah thought to himself. Zachariah took 2 steps forward and knelt in front of Mark once more. He said sincerely,
"Many thanks, Master Mark, for avenging my disciple, Milo. He will be able to rest in peace. Witnessing your skills once again made me admire you even more. I have never begged anyone in my life, but today I sincerely beg you, Master. Please, accept me as your disciple."
Mark felt a little helpless. Why do you still want to take me as your master? I've already said that I won't accept you as my disciple. Besides, you're already so old. As your junior, how can I accept you as my disciple? But Zachariah was determined.
Master Mark, the capability of a human has nothing to do with age. I am old and have studied profound arts for many years, and I think I've made some achievements. But compared to your skills, mine aren't worth mentioning. There is a saying that goes, one must learn from old age. To be able to meet an expert like you is my privilege. I would like to ask you for help because I am thirsty for knowledge. Take me as your disciple."
Mark was in a bit of a dilemma. He thought to himself, I'm still in the elementary stage and have not completely broken through yet. How can I take on a disciple now? Then President Winchester walked over. Earlier, President Winchester was in a rather gloomy mood because of everything that had happened. He also knew that if there was an investigation, the incidents at his university could be laid at his door. But now, it was different. The mastermind of the woman's deaths had been caught, even though he'd killed himself. But with the police here as witnesses, President Winchester would be able to give an explanation to the university board and have it backed up by the police. So he instantly relaxed. He was extremely grateful to Mark. If not for this young man, the situation would rapidly have escalated out of control, and many more young women would have died. This young man was truly a great master. His strength was something to brag about. The proud and arrogant Captain Jones had been taken down a peg, and even the highly respected Master Zachariah now acknowledged him as his master. President Winchester said to Mark,
"Master Mark, on behalf of all the students of LAU, I thank you. If you weren't here, a lot more damage and deaths would have occurred."
Hearing this, Captain Jones's face darkened. Although President Winchester's words weren't obviously criticizing him, he interpreted them that way. After that, President Winchester said to everyone,
"Master Mark has such strength at such a young age. He really has a bright future ahead of him. Zachariah said it right. A person's ability has nothing to do with age. Zachariah wants to take Mark here as his master, and if I wasn't an educator, I would also want to study under Master Mark. I'm so lucky to have an expert like him in my life. So I think, Master Mark, you should take Zachariah as your disciple."
Mark looked at Zachariah Zeus kneeling in front of him. Although the old man's strength was far below Mark's, he'd been famous for many years. If he accepted Zachariah as his disciple, Mark would be able to help him deal with any problems in the future. Thinking of this, Mark nodded in agreement. "All right then. If you want to take me as your master, that's fine. But my seniority is lower than yours, and I never asked to take you as my disciple. So how about we do it this way? I'll take you as my in-name only disciple." Zachariah was very happy when he heard this. Even if he was an in-name only disciple, he was still a disciple of Master Mark. He couldn't wait to begin learning from this powerful young man who had defeated both the turtle snake and the dark magic of the fish venom king. Zachariah nodded solemnly at his new master and said, "Thank you, Master Mark. I will do my very best and learn all I can from you." After this incident, Mark became famous at LA University. The school and the police had tried to keep the matter quiet because of its connection to some kind of evil art, and because they were afraid that the darkness of the fire voodoo cult could still have a bad effect on the students. But nothing travels as fast as bad news. Now, almost every student at the university knew that several students had died one after another, and that before they died, their stomachs had become bigger, and then they had each given birth to a fish. The students also knew that in the end, the matter wasn't solved by the police, but by a godlike individual called Mark Johnson. If you were to walk around the university during the days after Jack died, you would hear the gossip about Mark everywhere. "Hey, you heard what happened, didn't you? A few days ago, some women in our school got pregnant, gave birth to a fish, and then turned into a dried corpse. This was done by an evil cult. I heard they planted a venom in those women. Just thinking about it scares me." But this matter was settled by that Mark in the end. Let me tell you guys, that Mark is very powerful. They say he easily got the fish out of the woman's stomachs and killed it. In the end, he even found out who the mastermind was. If Mark had been here earlier, those women wouldn't have died. Yeah, I heard about that too. I heard that the police were here, but they couldn't do anything. Later on, they even asked a master, Milo Davidson from Nevada, for help. But even this Master Milo couldn't solve the problem, and in the end, he lost his life. Fortunately, Mark appeared. He was like an avenging angel and defeated the killer easily. Who exactly is this Mark guy? How is he so awesome? Hey, Mark is a master. Do you need to know anything else? He's a true master. Otherwise, how could he solve this matter so easily? Also, wasn't there a monster in Green Lake a few days back? I heard that the president secretly asked Master Zachariah to help destroy it, but Master Zachariah was no match for it. In the end, it was Mark who took action and subdued the lake monster. Have you noticed that Green Lake has been very peaceful lately, and there haven't been any more disturbances? Wow, after hearing all this, I really admire Mark Johnson. Such an expert is truly rare. I wonder what he looks like. It would be great if I could meet him sometime. There are pictures of him on the university forum. People are posting about him all the time. He's a hot topic right now. Quick, log in and take a look. I want to see what a real master looks like. So a few women squeezed together and opened their phones. They found the page of LAU's forum. On the most popular section of the campus forum, there was an article named, "The True Master Appears in the Modern World. The Wicked Path Has Nowhere to Hide." This article was specially written about how Mark defeated the demons in Green Lake, and how he discovered the mastermind behind the venom and saved those women. The person who wrote the article was Mark's #1 fan. He bragged about Mark's miracles in multiple paragraphs. Furthermore, the article also had pictures of Mark. The pictures were not very clear because they were taken secretly. But even so, when the women saw Mark's picture, they couldn't help but exclaim, "Wow, he's so young. I thought those master demon hunters and exorcists were all white-bearded old men." Yeah, he's handsome and built too. He's really hot. I like him. Oh, right. You guys don't know, do you? Mark isn't a student at LAU. He's the brother-in-law of a student. He's Kelly Midway's brother-in-law. Is that so? Master Mark is actually Kelly's brother-in-law? I know her. I'm sure I heard her say before that her brother-in-law was a good-for-nothing. How could he be Master Mark? I expect she's just saying that because she wants attention.